Hey everyone, before we start, thank you. Seriously, wherever you're watching this, New York, Tokyo, some bunker in the Rockies, drop it in the comments. And if this saves your life one day, like the video, subscribe. Because what I'm about to tell you, it's not a movie. It's how I survived the first 24 hours of hell on Earth. My name's Jake. I was a firefighter for 12 years. Now, I'm just a guy who crawled out of a mass grave wearing someone else's blood. It started like any other Tuesday. Engine 7, Brooklyn. Me and my crew, Rico, Patel, and Cap, were polishing rigs when dispatch crackled. Structure fire, 58th and Vanderbilt. Multiple calls reporting. Violent altercations on site. We rolled out fast. Late summer heat had the streets simmering. But when we got there, no smoke, no flames, just a crowd. Wrong. People swaying like drunks, eyes milky as old marbles. One guy, suit torn, neck chewed raw, lunged at our rig. Thump. Rico swore. Did we just hit him? Then the screaming started. Apartment windows exploded. Real fire this time. Thick, chemical-smelling smoke choking the block. We geared up. Oxygen masks. Axes. Standard protocol. Cap yelled, "Rescue team, with me," as we charged into the building. Inside was carnage. Blood streaked the walls like graffiti. A woman crawled toward us, guts spilling onto the carpet. "They're eating Maria!" she rasped. Then her eyes rolled back. Snap. Her head jerked sideways. She scrambled up, jaw unhinged like a snake's. Patel didn't hesitate. Halligan tool swung hard. Crack. Her skull caved. But she didn't drop, just kept coming, teeth gnashing. Rico put her down with a fire axe to the spine. "What the f*** is this, PCP?" he panted. We pushed deeper. Flames roared in the east stairwell. Trapped civilians sobbed behind apartment doors. That's when we heard it. Wet, tearing sounds. Behind 4B, I kicked the door. 3. Things hunched over a body. Ribs cracked open. Organs glistened. One whipped around. A kid, maybe 10, face smeared red. It hissed. Charged. My pulse hammered. Axe up. Swing. Blade buried in its neck. Black ooze bubbled out. Not blood. The thing clawed at my air hose, snapping teeth an inch from my visor. I stomped its knee, bone shattered, still it crawled. I crushed its skull with my boot. Pop. Like a rotten pumpkin. Rico vomited in his mask. "They don't die!" We barricaded the survivors. 5 trembling civilians in a utility closet. "Stay quiet," Cap ordered. "We'll clear a path." But the fire was spreading. Ceiling tiles rained embers. And the infected? More poured from apartments, drawn by noise, by heat, by us. We fought back to back. Axes chopped through bone. Halligans impaled chests. One got Patel, sank teeth into his shoulder. He screamed, wrenching free. Flesh ripped. "Go!" he yelled, shoving us toward the stairs. "I'll hold him!" We ran. Patel's screams faded under snarls. Outside was worse. Streets jammed with cars. People ran. Others fed. A cop emptied his pistol into a charging infected. 6 shots. Center mass. It didn't flinch. Tore his throat out. We loaded survivors into the rig. Rico floored it. Flames reflected in his wide eyes. "This is rabies times Ebola, man. They're everywhere." Cap got on the radio. "All units, avoid 58th and..." Static. Then a new voice, cold, robotic. "Containment breach. Initiate protocol blackout." Back at the station, we regrouped. 2 other crews made it back. Stories matched ours. Fires, rioters, attacks. I checked our rig. Found something wedged near the rear wheel. A metal canister. Smelled like gasoline and... almonds? Chemical. Cap pulled me aside. City's locking down. National Guard rolling in. He showed me his phone. A text. Burn zones expanding. Cleanse with extreme prejudice. Then the explosion started. Downtown, huge fireballs lit the sky, not accidents. Strategic. Blocks vanished in flames. They're burning the city, I whispered. To hide this, Cap nodded grimly. And we're the cleanup crew. Sirens wailed. Dispatch blared. All units, mass casualty event at Queensboro Tower. Fire on floors 10 through 15. Hundreds trapped. Cap grabbed my arm. That's no accident. They're hurting people, burning the evidence. Helicopters thumped overhead. Searchlights swept the streets. Gunfire erupted. Not just rifles, machine guns. Rico kicked the wall. We still going? Cap looked at us. The station shook. We're firefighters. We save people, even from this. Queensboro Tower loomed ahead. A graveyard of steel. Flames licked the upper floors. Infected swarmed the lobby doors. Hundreds, drawn by the noise. The heat. The prey inside. We geared up. Extra axes, bolt cutters. Listen up, Cap yelled. We go in fast. Top floor first. Rescue who we can. Avoid engagement unless... A Humvee screeched up. Soldiers in black body armor jumped out. No insignia. One tossed Cap a flare gun. Light the sky when you're clear. We'll purge the site. Rico met my eyes. They're gonna burn it. With everyone inside. The tower groaned. Glass rained down. Screams echoed from above. I hefted my axe. Then we move now. The lobby doors of Queensboro Tower weren't just locked. They were a writhing wall of them. 50? 100? Impossible to tell in the flickering emergency lights and the hellish glow from the floors above. Pressed against the glass, teeth snapping, hands smearing dark fluids. Their collective moan was a physical thing, vibrating through the soles of my boots. Rico gripped his axe like a lifeline. Cap? Plan? Cap didn't flinch. His eyes, hard as flint, scanned the perimeter. Soldiers said avoid engagement. They didn't say how to get in. Side service entrance? Loading dock? Move. We peeled away from the main entrance, hugging the building's shadow. The stench hit harder here. Burnt plastic, charred meat, and that underlying sickly sweet rot. The loading dock door was a heavy steel roller, partially crumpled, maybe from a fleeing truck. Just enough gap at the bottom. And sounds, wet, tearing sounds, coming from inside. On 3, Cap hissed. Rico, lift. Jake, cover. I go first. He chambered a round in his service pistol, a last resort weapon we rarely carried. The situation had erased rarely. 1, 2, 3! Rico heaved, muscles straining. The door screeched upwards another foot. Cap dove through low and fast. My axe was ready. Inside was a slaughterhouse. Fluorescent tubes flickered erratically over a scene from a nightmare. Infected crouched over the remains of dock workers, security guards. One, wearing shredded UPS browns, looked up, its lower jaw hanging by sinew, a length of intestine dangling from its teeth. It saw Cap. It charged, a guttural snarl ripping from its ruined throat. Cap fired. Pop! The bullet punched through its forehead. It dropped like a puppet with cut strings. The crack of the gunshot was a detonation in the confined space. Every infected head snapped towards us. "Go, go, go!" Cap roared, firing twice more, dropping 2 more shambling forms. We scrambled under the door. Rico let it slam shut with a resonant clang just as bodies thudded against the other side. We were in, but the gunshots were a dinner bell. Groans echoed from deeper within the loading bay, shadows detached from the gloom, moving with sudden, jerky purpose. "Stairs left!" Rico yelled, spotting the emergency exit sign. We ran, boots slipping on blood-slicked concrete. An infected lunged from behind a stack of pallets, a woman in a shredded business suit, one high heel still on. I didn't swing. I rammed. My shoulder connected hard, sending her sprawling into a rack of metal shelves with a clatter. We didn't stop. Cap kicked the stairwell door open. The concrete stairs led up into smoky darkness. Distant screams filtered down. The fire was above us. So were the people. "Top floor first," Cap gasped, already taking the steps 2 at a time. "Rescue who we can, avoid fights, conserve ammo, conserve strength, move fast." The stairwell was a tomb choked with the stink of fear and decay. Bloody handprints smeared the walls. On the 3rd floor landing, we found our first survivor, or what was left. A man curled in a corner, whimpering, clutching a bleeding stump where his left hand used to be. His eyes were wide, unseeing terror. They bit Mikey. Then Mikey bit me. He held up the stump. The flesh around the wound was already an angry, mottled purple, veins blackening like spilled ink. Rico knelt. "We'll get you." The man convulsed. His whimpering stopped. His head snapped up. Those terrified eyes clouded over, milky white in seconds. A gurgling snarl bubbled from his throat as he lunged for Rico's leg. My axe came down on the crown of his skull. Not a killing blow for a human. For this, it split bone, sinking deep. The thing that had been the man shuddered, fingers still twitching towards Rico's boot. Black fluid seeped from the wound, thick and foul. Rico stared, pale. He turned. "That fast?" "Faster every time," Cap muttered grimly, wiping gore from his axe head on the dead man's shirt. "No bites, no scratches, just exposure, airborne, don't know, don't care right now, move." We ascended. The higher we climbed, the thicker the smoke became. Acrid, chemical-laced. Not just a building fire, an accelerated fire. Flames licked under doorways on the 8th floor, painting the stairwell walls in flickering orange and black. The heat intensified, sucking the moisture from our throats even through the masks. The screams from above grew more desperate, punctuated by the sickening wet sounds of feeding. Floor 10. The fire door was hot to the touch. Cap listened. Screams, crashes, the hungry snarls of the infected, and the roar of the fire beyond. "This is it," he said, voice tight. "Rescue Point Alpha. Rico, bolt cutters, barricaded doors. Jake, watch R6. Anything moves that ain't screaming for help, put it down. Hard." Rico cut the heavy chain looped through the door handles. Cap kicked it open. Chaos. The hallway was a vision of hell. Smoke rolled along the ceiling in thick, choking waves. Flames danced from apartment doorways, greedily consuming cheap carpet and drywall. But worse were the figures. Dozens of infected, drawn by the noise and the trapped prey. They shuffled, lunged, hammered on apartment doors, Some were feasting on the fallen in the corridors. Others simply stood, swaying, milky eyes fixed on nothing or everything. And the people. Faces pressed against peepholes, white with terror. A door halfway down burst open. A man wielding a fire poker charged out, screaming incoherently, impaling an infected woman through the chest. It didn't stop. It grabbed his arm, pulled him close, and sank its teeth into his face. His screams turned wet, gargling. More infected swarmed him. "Engine 7!" Cap bellowed, his voice cutting through the din. "Fire department! We are rescue! Stay in your apartments until we clear a path! We are getting you out!" His words had an immediate, horrifying effect. Doors flew open. People surged into the hallway, screaming, crying, tripping over each other, over bodies. They saw the firefighters. Hope flared, blinding and desperate. They stampeded towards us, directly into the waiting arms of the infected. It was a massacre. The slow-moving infected became predators in the confined space. They grabbed at limbs, pulled people down, sank teeth into necks, arms, legs. The hallway became a charnel house. Blood sprayed, slicking the floor. Screams of terror became shrieks of agony, then wet, choking gurgles. The smell of copper and burnt meat became overwhelming. "No! Get back! Get back inside!" Rico screamed uselessly. He waded in, axe swinging. Thwack! An infected clutching a teenager went down, head nearly severed. Crunch! Another, dragging a woman by her hair, took an axe blade through its temple. I moved beside him, a grim reaper in turnout gear. My axe wasn't for rescue anymore. It was for extermination. Swing, crush bone, stomp. Feel skull collapse under my boot. Swing again, hack at grasping arms. Black blood splattered my visor. I didn't wipe it. Didn't have time. Survival was a rhythm. Dodge, lunge, swing, kill. Step over corpse. Repeat. We carved a brutal path towards the central stairwell, the only clear route up. Cap covered our rear, firing precise shots. Pop, pop, infected dropped. But for everyone he dropped, 2 more seemed to shamble from burning apartments or drag themselves from the feast on the floor. We reached the stairwell door, miraculously intact. Rico slammed it shut behind the last few terrified survivors who'd made it to us, maybe 10 out of the 30 who'd burst out. Their eyes were hollow with trauma. One woman vomited on the stairs. "Up!" Cap ordered, his face grim. "Fire's climbing, we're running out of time." The next floors were repeats of the horror, escalating in intensity. Floor 11. A daycare center. Tiny bodies. Tiny infected. Rico froze for a second, staring at a small thing in overalls gnawing on a teddy bear clutched in the arms of a dead teacher. I kicked the small infected hard against the wall. Its skull cracked like an egg. Rico didn't say a word. He just started swinging his axe with a terrifying silent fury. Floor 12. A blocked stairwell. Bodies piled high, infected, and victims tangled in a final embrace. We had to climb over them. Hands grabbed at our legs, teeth scraped against our boots. Cap used his Halligan tool like a crowbar, levering corpses aside. The stench was vomit-inducing even through the mask filter. Floor 13. The fire was winning. Flames roared down the hallway, a wall of heat that forced us back. Visibility dropped to 0 in the thick black smoke. We heard coughing, desperate cries from behind a nearby apartment door. "Help us! Please! They're breaking in!" Cap pointed. "Rico, Jake, get them! I'll hold the corridor!" He raised his pistol towards the shapes emerging from the smoke. Rico and I attacked the apartment door with axes and Halligan. The wood splintered. Inside, a family, mother, father, 2 young kids, huddled behind an overturned sofa, eyes wide with terror. The window behind them was shattered. Infected hands clawed at the frame, trying to pull themselves in. "Come on, now!" Rico yelled, grabbing the smallest child. We bundled them out just as Cap fired his last 2 rounds. 2 infected dropped. More came, shambling through the smoke and flame. "Go! Up the stairs, now!" Cap roared, shoving us towards the stairwell door. He turned, swinging his empty pistol like a club, smashing it into the face of the lead infected. It stumbled back. Another lunged, grabbing his turnout coat. "Cap!" I screamed, turning back. "Jake! Go! Get them out!" he bellowed, wrestling with the thing. Another infected latched onto his leg. He went down under a pile of snarling, biting bodies. His scream was cut short by a wet, tearing sound. His hand, still clutching the flare gun the soldier had given him, shot up from the writhing mass for a second before disappearing. Rico grabbed my arm, hauling me back. "He's gone, Jake! He's gone! Move!" Numbness washed over me, cold despite the inferno. Cap, Patel, gone. I looked down at the family, at Rico's blood-smeared face, at the flare gun Cap had dropped near the stairwell door. The soldier's words echoed. "Light the sky when you're clear. We'll purge the site." The tower groaned, a deep metallic shriek. Flames licked up the stairwell walls below us. The infected feasting on Cap were already starting to notice us. More were climbing the stairs from the lower floors, drawn by the noise and the blood. We were trapped. Hundreds of terrified civilians above us, an inferno climbing, infected swarming below, and soldiers outside, waiting for a signal to turn this steel tomb into a crematorium. The flare gun felt impossibly heavy in my hand. Light the sky? Signal the death of everyone above the fire line? Or fight our way down, through impossible odds, condemning those above to burn or be eaten? Rico met my eyes, seeing the flare gun. Understanding flashed across his face, replaced by raw horror. "Jake, you can't..." Cap wouldn't... The flare gun was ice and fire in my hand. Cap's final order echoed, "Get them out." But below, the stairwell churned with infected. They climbed over each other, a relentless tide of death drawn by the heat, the noise, our desperate energy. Their groans coalesced into a single hungry roar vibrating up the concrete shaft. Above, the terrified whimpers of the family Rico had pulled from the burning apartment. A mother clutching 2 wide-eyed kids, the father bleeding from a gash on his forehead. Rico stared at me, his face pale beneath the grime and blood spatter, eyes wide with the unthinkable choice. "Light it," Rico breathed, his voice raw. "Light it now, Jake. It's the only way they get out alive." He jerked his chin towards the family huddled against the wall. "They burn it anyway. At least this way. Maybe the choppers see it first." He meant the people above us, the hundreds still trapped on floors 14 and 15. Lighting the flare was their death sentence. The soldiers would burn the tower. But not signaling? We'd never get the family out. We'd die here in this smoke-choked stairwell torn apart, and everyone above would still burn or be eaten. The lead infected, a huge man missing an arm, entrails dangling, reached the landing below ours, its milky eyes fixed on the father. It lunged, scrambling up the last few steps. Instinct took over. Not the flare. The axe. I stepped forward, meeting the charge. My boot slammed down on its grasping hand, crushing bone against concrete. The axe came down in a vicious arc, cleaving deep into its collarbone. Black ooze, thick as motor oil, sprayed. It didn't stop. It snapped its jaws inches from my mask. I ripped the axe free, stomped hard on its knee, and brought the blunt backside of the axe head down on its skull. Crunch, splat. It collapsed. But there were 10 more behind it, 20, filling the stairwell. "Rico, the door!" I roared, swinging wildly, keeping the tide back for precious seconds. The infected piled over their fallen kin, driven by mindless hunger. Rico understood. He slammed his shoulder against the heavy steel door leading back onto the 13th floor corridor, the same corridor where Cap had fallen. The heat radiating from it was intense. Flames licked around the edges. "Jake, it's still hot. Fire's in there." "Just hold it," I yelled, kicking another infected down the stairs. They were relentless. One grabbed my axe handle. I twisted, ripped it free, and buried the blade in its eye socket. Rico grunted, muscles straining, keeping the inferno door shut. "Jake, I can't hold this and fight. We need to move." The family screamed as an infected hand shot through the railing, grabbing the mother's ankle. The father stomped on it frantically. I spun, axe flashing, severing the wrist. The hand fell away, fingers still twitching. The mother sobbed hysterically. Up, there was only up. Through the fire, through the infected swarming the upper floors, towards the roof, towards the soldiers who might shoot us on sight. "Go!" I bellowed at the family, shoving them towards the ascending stairs. "Run! Don't stop!" I turned back to Rico. "We push them. Clear the way. Forget stealth. Forget everything but killing." Rico met my gaze. The fear was still there, but it was buried under a layer of terrifying resolve. He nodded, hefting his axe. "Clear a path. Got it." We became a whirlwind of violence. We charged up the stairs towards the 14th floor, the family scrambling behind us. The infected pouring down met our axes head on. It wasn't firefighting. It wasn't rescue. It was extermination. Floor 14 landing. The door was partially ajar. Infected spilled out. Rico went low, swinging his axe like a scythe, chopping legs. I went high, crushing skulls, shattering jaws. Black gore painted the walls. We didn't stop moving. We pushed into the hallway, a brutal wedge of destruction. The corridor was marginally clearer than 13, the fire not yet fully entrenched here, but the smoke was thicker, stinging our eyes even through the masks. Infected, turned from their feasts, from hammering on doors, drawn to our violent intrusion. "Engine 7 to the roof, move!" Rico roared, his voice a ragged battle cry. Doors cracked open, faces peered out, hope warring with terror. "Follow us! Now or die here!" A trickle became a flood. Survivors surged from apartments, maybe 30, 40 people. Men, women, children, all covered in soot, eyes wide with primal fear. They saw Rico and I, drenched in black blood, axes dripping, moving like avatars of death. And they followed. Because what else was there? We became the tip of a spear, carving a path of carnage towards the central stairwell leading to the roof. Every swing was exhaustion and rage. Patel's face flashed in my mind. Cap's scream. My axe crushed the skull of a thing that had once been a security guard. Rico disemboweled another with a savage upward swing. We moved in grim tandem, a machine fueled by adrenaline and despair. The survivors pressed close behind, a terrified, jostling mass. Their screams when an infected broke through our flanks were piercing. We couldn't save them all. We couldn't even look back. Floor 15. The fire door to the roof access stairs was ahead, chained shut, a thick, heavy padlock. Beyond it, through the wire-reinforced window, I could see the night sky stained orange by the citywide inferno. Freedom. Maybe. A cluster of infected milled near the door, drawn by the noise below. "Bolt cutters!" I yelled, tossing the tool back to Rico. "Cut it! I'll hold them!" I turned to face the tide we'd dragged up with us. Infected poured from side corridors, from the stairwell behind our group of survivors. They slammed into the rear of the panicked crowd. Screams turned to shrieks of agony. People fell, dragged down, disappearing under a writhing mass of teeth and claws. Blood fountained, the stench of opened bowels mixed with the smoke. "Rico, hurry!" I bellowed, wading into the fray at the rear. My axe was a blur. Hack, stomp, crush, kick a snarling woman off a fallen man. Too late. Her teeth had torn out his throat. I crushed her skull. Another latched onto my leg. I slammed the axe pommel into its temple. It dropped. Another took its place. They were endless. My arms screamed with fatigue. Snap! The chain gave way behind me. Rico threw the door open. "Jake! Move! Everyone up! Now!" The survivors stampeded for the stairs. Rico stood at the doorway, axe raised, guarding the escape route. "Go! Go! Go!" he screamed, shoving people through. I fought my way back towards him, shoving infected aside, trampling the fallen. The crowd thinned rapidly as people scrambled up the stairs. Rico was a rock holding the doorway, his axe felling anything that got too close. His eyes met mine as I neared. "Get them to the roof! Signal the flare, I'll hold this!" He meant it, he was staying. Buying time. Like Cap. Like Patel. Hell no! I grabbed his turnout coat, hauling him back just as 3 infected lunged for the doorway. "Together, damn it!" We stumbled back into the roof access stairwell, slamming the heavy fire door shut. Rico slammed the bolt cutters through the push bar handle, jamming it shut. Immediately, bodies thudded against the other side. Snarls vibrated through the steel. The survivors were already scrambling up the final flight. We followed, lungs burning, legs leaden. The door to the roof was unlocked. We burst out into the chaotic night. Wind whipped smoke and embers across the vast rooftop. The heat was intense, radiating from the inferno below. Flames roared from windows on the eastern side, licking the parapet. Helicopters circled like vultures, military birds, searchlights stabbing down. The roar of their blades was deafening. Below, the streets crawled with infected and flickered with countless fires. Queens was burning. The survivors scattered, some collapsing, others running blindly towards the far edge, waving frantically at the helicopters. "Help us! Over here!" Rico grabbed my arm, pointing. "The flare! Jake, now! Before the soldiers torch it!" I fumbled with the flare gun, my hands slick with blood and sweat. The heavy metal felt alien. Pointed skyward, safety off. My finger found the trigger. One signal. I raised the flare gun, aimed at the chopper closest to us, its searchlight blinding. Bang! The flare shot skyward with a sharp crack and a hiss, trailing brilliant red smoke and light. It arced high, a burning scarlet tear in the smoky night sky. Impossible to miss. For a second, everything seemed to pause. Survivors stared up. The circling helicopters banked, turning their lights towards the brilliant signal. Then the rooftop exploded. Not fire, gunfire, sniper fire. Bullets ricocheted off HVAC units sparked against the gravel rooftop. A man running towards the edge jerked violently and crumpled. A woman screamed, clutching her arm. Red flowers bloomed on her shirt. "They're shooting at us!" Rico roared, dragging me down behind a massive air conditioning unit. Bullets chewed the metal casing above our heads. "The bastards are killing witnesses!" The flare's light bathed the rooftop in hellish red. It wasn't a rescue signal, it was a target painted on our backs. The soldiers weren't waiting to burn the tower after we cleared it. They were ensuring no one got out. No one who saw what happened here. Who saw them. Rage, pure and volcanic, erupted in my chest. They killed Cap. They set the fires. They unleashed this hell. And now they were murdering the survivors we'd dragged through literal hell to save. "Stay down!" I yelled at the terrified civilians cowering nearby. Rico and I shared a look of pure fury. We were trapped, exposed, armed with axes against snipers and helicopters. A chopper banked sharply, its side door open. Not a rescue line, a machine gunner. The muzzle flashed in the darkness. Heavy caliber rounds tore across the rooftop. Gravel exploded. HVAC units were shredded. Screams were cut short. Bodies jerked and fell. "The crane!" Rico screamed, pointing towards the skeletal outline of a construction crane looming over the adjacent building, its arm extending perilously close to our rooftop. "It's our only jump!" It was insane. 100-foot drop onto steel girders if we missed, but staying meant being cut down or burned alive. The chopper swung around for another pass, its spotlight pinning us. "Go! I'll cover!" Rico bellowed, shoving me towards the crane arm. He picked up a chunk of concrete and hurled it with all his might towards the chopper's spotlight. It missed, but the distraction was enough. He broke cover, axe in hand, running towards the approaching chopper, screaming obscenities. A lone, blood-soaked David against a Goliath of steel and firepower. "Rico, no!" I screamed. The machine gunner swiveled. The muzzle flashed again. Rico's body danced under the impact, torn apart mid-stride. He crumpled like a broken doll, his axe clattering away. "No!" Grief and rage turned my vision red. Rico was gone. Everyone was gone. The survivors were being slaughtered. The machine gunner traversed, seeking new targets. Me, the remaining civilians, the crane arm. It was now or never. I didn't think. I ran. Not away from the gunfire, but parallel, using the cover of the remaining HVAC units, the blinding smoke, the erratic light of the flare now beginning to dim. Bullets kicked up sparks at my heels. I heard cries behind me cut short. I reached the parapet. The crane arm stretched out, a dark skeletal finger maybe 15 feet away. Below, sheer drop onto flaming wreckage and swarming infected. The chopper roared closer, its spotlight searching. I took 3 running steps and leaped into the choking, smoke-filled night. Time stretched, the wind screamed. The roar of the fire, the choppers, the city's death throes filled my ears. I saw the dark steel rushing up. Thud! I hit the crane's latticework arm hard, ribs screaming, the breath knocked out of me. My hands scrambled, clawing for purchase on cold, greasy metal. My legs dangled over oblivion. I hauled myself up, gasping, clinging like a spider. Bullets spanged off the steel around me. They'd seen me. I didn't look back. I crawled, hand over hand, along the narrow beam towards the crane's cab high above the adjacent building. My ribs felt broken. Every movement was agony. The wind threatened to pluck me off. Below, Queensboro Tower burned like a funeral pyre. I saw figures on the roof, small, dark shapes in the searchlights. Then a massive fireball erupted from the upper floors as the soldiers finally unleashed their purge. The explosion lit the night, consuming the rooftop, the survivors, Rico's body, everything. The shockwave rattled the crane. I kept crawling, numb, empty. Just the drive to survive, to escape, to make them pay. I reached the crane cab, empty, smashed windows. I clambered in, collapsing onto the cold metal floor, gasping, tasting blood and smoke. The controls were useless, but it was shelter. Temporary. Outside, the purge continued. Explosions rippled through the tower. The choppers circled, firing sporadically into the inferno below. Queensboro Tower became a tomb of flame and steel. I don't know how long I lay there, shaking, bleeding, seeing Rico torn apart, seeing Cap disappear under the horde, hearing Patel's final scream, the faces of the people we couldn't save. The flare gun. I still had it. Useless now. I hurled it out the broken window in a spasm of rage. It clattered down into the darkness. I had to move. They might sweep the crane. I had to get down. To ground level. To somewhere. The descent was a nightmare. Climbing down the 100 feet of ladder on the crane's mast, ribs screaming with every rung. The city below was a war zone. Gunfire echoed constantly. Sirens wailed unanswered. Buildings burned. Shapes moved in the streets, some fleeing, most hunting. The stench was overwhelming. I hit the alley behind the building the crane was attached to, collapsed again, vomiting bile. I was alone. Utterly alone. My axe was gone, lost on the rooftop or during the jump. All I had was my turnout coat, torn and bloodied, my helmet, and a folding knife on my belt, useless against the hordes. I needed shelter. Weapons. Answers. I moved through the back streets like a ghost, sticking to shadows, avoiding the main roads choked with abandoned cars and prowling infected. I saw things that would haunt me forever. A group cornering a man in a dumpster, pulling him apart limb by limb. Infected children, no higher than my waist, gnawing on a corpse. A National Guard Humvee overturned, its crew strewn around it being feasted upon. The soldiers' insignia had been hastily painted over. The deliberate fires, the cover-up, it was everywhere. Whole blocks reduced to ash. Not by accident, but by design, containment, or extermination. I found a small boarded-up bodega. The door was weak. I kicked it in, empty, dark, smelling of stale beer and dust. I barricaded the door with a heavy cooler, collapsed behind the counter. Exhaustion claimed me, a black pit swallowing the horror. I woke to the sound of scratching at the door, then a low guttural moan, then another. They'd found me, trapped in a corner store with no axe, no gun, just a knife. And outside, the hungry dead were gathering. The sound drilled into my skull, scritch, scratch, scratch, like rats but heavier, hungrier, then the low moan, vibrating through the flimsy plywood covering the bodega door. Another joined it, then another. A chorus of the damned gathering outside my tomb. Adrenaline, sour and electric, burned through the exhaustion. Move! My ribs screamed as I pushed myself up from behind the counter. Every breath was a knife twist. Cap's voice echoed in the ringing silence of my mind. Assess, adapt, survive. Survival wasn't axes and turnout gear anymore. It was the folding knife in my belt, cold comfort against the horde outside. And the cooler barricading the door? It wouldn't hold them for long. The bodega was a tomb of shadows. Rows of empty shelves picked clean or ransacked long before I stumbled in. Dust motes danced in the faint, hellish orange glow, filtering through gaps in the boarded windows. Queens burned outside. The stench of smoke was a constant presence. I needed something. Anything. My eyes scanned the gloom. Broken glass crunched under my boots. Behind the counter, empty cash register, spilled lottery tickets. Underneath, yes. A heavy-duty fire extinguisher. Old, dusty, but the gauge showed pressure. Not an axe, but blunt force trauma and a potential blinding agent. I grabbed it, hefting its reassuring weight. The cold metal bit into my raw palms. The door shuddered. The cooler scraped back an inch. A fist-sized splinter of wood exploded inward, followed by a pale, groping hand, fingers clawing at the air. A milky eye pressed against the hole, scanning the darkness. A wet snarl echoed through the gap. More bodies slammed against the door. The cooler groaned, sliding further. The barricade was failing. Fast. No time for subtlety. I needed an exit. Or a kill zone. The back. There had to be a back room. Storage. I stumbled past empty coolers humming uselessly towards a heavy curtain separating the shop floor from the rear. Another thunderous crack. Wood splintered. The door buckled inward. Infected hands scrabbled through the widening gap, tearing at the plywood like frenzied animals. The cooler tilted, threatening to topple. I ripped the curtain aside. A small storeroom. Dank. Smelling of damp cardboard and rat droppings. And blessed relief. A heavy steel door. Security bars bolted across it, but the door itself looked solid. An exit? I rushed to it, fumbling with the deadbolt. Locked. From the outside, or jammed. I rattled the handle. Nothing. Panic clawed its way up my throat. The sound from the front was catastrophic. Wood tearing, metal scraping. The cooler slammed over with a deafening clang. The moans erupted into triumphant snarls. They were in. I spun. Through the curtain, I saw them. 5, 6 shapes silhouetted against the smoky light from the shattered doorway, stumbling over the fallen cooler. Their heads snapped towards the movement. Towards me. Trapped. Front entrance breached. Back door locked. Nowhere to run. Only fight. The first one lunged through the curtain, a man in mechanic's coveralls, one arm hanging by threads of muscle. I didn't hesitate. I swung the fire extinguisher like a battering ram. Clang! It connected with his temple. Bone crunched. He dropped like a sack of wet cement. Black ooze, thick and foul, seeped from the wound. But the others were right behind. A woman missing her lower jaw hissed soundlessly as she clawed at me. I sidestepped, bringing the extinguisher down hard on the back of her skull. Crunch. She collapsed onto the mechanic. 2 more shoved past the curtain. Teenagers, maybe, faces slack, clothes torn. They moved with eerie coordination, spreading out to flank me in the cramped storeroom. One grabbed for my injured side. White-hot agony lanced through my ribs. I roared, swinging the extinguisher wildly. It clipped the grabbing teen's shoulder, spinning him around. The other lunged, teeth snapping for my neck. I dropped low. His teeth snapped shut on empty air where my throat had been. I jammed the nozzle of the extinguisher into his gut and pulled the pin. A cloud of dense white chemical powder exploded point blank into his face and chest. He shrieked, a horrifying wet gurgle, clawing at his eyes. The powder billowed, filling the small room, stinging my own eyes, coating everything in a choking, acrid frost. Blinded, disoriented, the other teen stumbled. I didn't give him a chance. I surged up, driving the heavy base of the extinguisher upwards under his chin. Crack! His head snapped back, neck broken. He crumpled. The blinded one was still flailing, choking on the powder. I ended him quickly, brutally, bringing the extinguisher down on his skull twice. Silence. Thick, dusty silence, broken only by my ragged gasps and the moans from the front of the shop. More were coming, drawn by the noise. The powder settled, coating the corpses, the floor, me. I looked like a ghost covered in chemical snow and black blood. I needed out. Now. The back door. I attacked the security bars with the spent extinguisher. The metal shrieked but held. The bolts were thick, rusted. It would take forever. Forever I didn't have. Moans grew louder from the shop floor. Shadows moved beyond the curtain. More were pushing inside the bodega. The curtain was torn down. 3 more infected stood in the doorway, silhouetted by the dim light from the front. Their milky eyes fixed on me instantly. They lurched forward, arms outstretched, teeth bared. No room to swing the pry bar properly. I went low and fast, like fighting fire in a crawl space. The hammer was my weapon, close quarters brutality. I met the first one's lunge, sidestepping its grasping hands. The hammer smashed its kneecap. Bone splintered. It went down shrieking. I stomped hard on its neck. The second was almost on me. I ducked under its clumsy swing, feeling rotten fingernails scrape my helmet. I drove the pry bar upwards, jamming the chisel end deep into its open mouth, punching through the soft palate. Black blood fountained. I twisted, ripping it free. The thing gurgled, collapsing. The third was the largest, a big guy in a security guard's shredded uniform. He filled the doorway. No finesse here. He barreled forward like a linebacker. I braced, swinging the pry bar like a baseball bat. It connected with his temple. He staggered but didn't go down. He grabbed the pry bar, wrenching it from my grasp with terrifying strength. He lunged, arms wrapping around me in a crushing bear hug. My ribs screamed. Agony blinded me. His rotten breath washed over my visor. I felt his teeth scrape against the helmet's collar. He squeezed. My vision tunneled. I couldn't breathe. The nail gun, strapped to my back. My fingers fumbled, slick with sweat and blood. Found the trigger, twisted my body awkwardly, jammed the muzzle against his side, under his ribs. 3 rapid-fire impacts vibrated through us. He jerked with each shot. His grip loosened slightly. A choked gurgle escaped his lips. Black blood, hot and sticky, seeped through his uniform where the nails had punched through. He didn't let go. He squeezed harder, driven by primal fury. Spots danced before my eyes. I fired again and again. Finally, his arms went slack. He slumped against me, a dead weight leaking black ooze. I shoved his massive corpse off me, gasping, sucking in great shuddering breaths that sent fresh waves of pain through my ribs. The nail gun's battery light blinked red. Dead. More moans. Closer. They were filling the shop, drawn by the carnage. By me. I had to get through that door. Now. I retrieved the pry bar from under the dead guard. Ignoring the pain, I jammed the chisel end into the gap between the steel door and the frame, right next to the deadbolt. I heaved. Muscles screamed. Metal groaned. Nothing. I moved down the alley, limping, clutching my side. Every step was agony. The pry bar was heavy, but it felt good in my hand. Solid. The hammer hung from my belt. The useless nail gun I discarded in a pile of reeking garbage. Lighten the load. The alley opened onto a side street. Abandoned cars sat at odd angles. A flickering streetlight cast long dancing shadows. And movement. Everywhere. Shambling figures in the distance. The distant pop 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 of gunfire. Sirens that never seemed to get closer. The city was dying. I needed shelter. Real shelter. Not a death trap. Weapons. Medical supplies. Answers. The fire station, overrun. Hospitals. Ground zero for the outbreak. My mind raced, cutting through the haze of pain and grief. Think like a firefighter. Think command structure. Emergency response. Where would they consolidate? Where would they, the ones setting the fires, the ones covering it up, be? Then I saw it. Parked haphazardly on the sidewalk halfway down the block, engine still ticking as it cooled. A black SUV. Not police. Not military. Unmarked. But familiar. Like the Humvee at Queensboro Tower. The windows were tinted opaque. The driver's door hung open. Cautiously, pry bar raised, I approached. The street was eerily quiet for a moment. The smell hit me first. Coppery blood. Cordite. And that faint, lingering scent of almonds. Chemical. The driver was slumped over the wheel. Not infected. Shot. Twice in the back of the head. Execution style. His black tactical vest bore no insignia. In his lap, clutched in a death grip, was a tablet computer. Its screen cracked, but still glowing faintly. My heart hammered against my bruised ribs. Evidence. Proof. I reached in, carefully prying the tablet from the dead man's fingers. The screen flickered. It was locked, password protected. But the background image, it was a schematic. A building layout, familiar. The Queensboro Tower basement levels, marked with red symbols, ignition points, and timestamps. Timestamps before the first calls came in. They did set it, deliberately, to destroy evidence, to kill witnesses. A low growl echoed from behind a nearby dumpster. Then another. Shapes detached from the shadows. 3 infected, drawn by the scent of fresh blood from the dead driver. Their milky eyes fixed on me. They started shuffling forward, picking up speed. I clutched the tablet, my key, my weapon against the real monsters. I couldn't fight here, not injured, not against 3. And more would come. I looked past them, down the street. About a block away, a structure stood relatively intact amidst the burning chaos. Thick walls, heavy steel roll-up doors, a faded sign, FDNY Engine 42, Ladder 18. Another firehouse. It wasn't mine, but it was home. Sanctuary. Maybe supplies. Maybe, just maybe, survivors. Or at least a defensible position. The infected closed in, forming a ragged semicircle cutting off the alley. Their snarls grew louder, hungrier. The one in front, a woman in a nightgown stained with old blood, lunged. I didn't run towards the firehouse. I ran across the street, ducking between two abandoned cars. I needed to lead them away from the tablet, from the evidence. I needed to get to that firehouse. "Come on, you rotting bastards!" I roared, slamming the pry bar against a car hood. The metallic clang echoed in the street. Their heads snapped towards the noise, towards me. They changed direction, shambling after my taunt. I ran, limping, ribs on fire, clutching the pry bar. The tablet was a hard rectangle against my chest under my coat. The firehouse door beckoned. A heavy steel apparatus bay door, slightly ajar. Hope warred with terror. What waited inside? Refuge. Or another tomb. The snarls grew closer behind me. I didn't look back. I poured every ounce of agony and rage into my legs, sprinting the last 20 yards towards the dark maw of the open bay door. Sanctuary. Or slaughter. I dove through the gap into the unknown darkness of Firehouse 42. The impact of the heavy bay door slamming shut reverberated up my injured arm, sending fresh jolts of agony through my ribs. Blessed, terrifying silence followed, thick and cloying after the frantic snarls of the dead outside. Only the frantic drumming of my own heart and the harsh rasp of my breath filled the void. Firehouse 42. Darkness wasn't absolute. Faint, hellish orange light seeped around the edges of the massive closed roll-up doors and through high, grimy windows, painting long, distorted shadows across the cavernous apparatus bay. The familiar smells hit me first. Engine oil, stale coffee, disinfectant. But underneath it all, the New World's signature stenches. Smoke, decay, and the faint metallic tang of old blood. I slumped against the cold steel door, the pry bar clattering from my numb fingers. The tablet pressed hard against my chest under the torn turnout coat, a cold, hard rectangle of damning truth. My side screamed. Every breath was a struggle, a hot knife twisting beneath my ribs. Broken? Definitely cracked. Maybe worse. Assess. Adapt. Cap's ghost whispered in the dark. Survive. I forced my eyes to adjust. Shapes emerged from the gloom. The hulking silhouette of a ladder truck, engine 42 itself. Workbenches cluttered with tools, lockers lining the far wall. The doorway leading deeper into the firehouse, the kitchen, bunk rooms, offices, and movement? A low groan echoed from near the ladder truck. Not the hungry snarl outside. This was different, painful, human. Hello? My voice was a dry croak swallowed by the vast space. FDNY, is anyone here? Silence. Then a weak cough. Be back! Here! The voice was male, strained, laced with pain. Cautiously, pry bar retrieved, I moved towards the sound. Every step a conscious effort against the pain radiating from my side. The ladder truck's massive tires loomed like dark monoliths. I rounded the rear bumper. A man lay sprawled on the concrete floor, propped against the truck's rear step. Firefighter gear, same as mine, but ripped and bloodied. His face was pale, slick with sweat in the dim light. One leg was bent at a sickening angle below the knee, compound fracture. Bone gleamed white amidst torn fabric and dark, congealing blood. The smell of infection was already potent. Jake, I said, kneeling carefully, wincing. Engine 7, Queensboro Tower. The name felt like ash in my mouth. What happened here? My blood ran cold. Not just Queensboro. Here. They were systematically targeting firehouses. Why? To eliminate organized resistance? To stop us from helping? Or because firefighters saw too much? Saw the deliberate fires? Saw them? How many? I asked, scanning the shadows. Survivors? Infected? Don't know, Martinez whispered, his voice fading. Scattered. When the dead got in. Some ran upstairs. Some barricaded in the watchroom. I crawled. Here. He coughed again, violently, flecks of blood appearing on his lips. His eyes locked onto mine, desperate. Water. Please. I nodded, pushing myself up. The watchroom, the nerve center, communications, maybe medical supplies, definitely water. Stay quiet. I'll be back. Moving deeper into the firehouse felt like entering a crypt. The familiar sounds were gone. The banter, the radio chatter, the bell. Replaced by an oppressive silence broken only by the distant city's death rattle and the ominous creak of the old building settling. Blood smeared the linoleum floor in the hallway leading past the empty kitchen. Overturned chairs. A discarded helmet. The watchroom door was closed. Heavy wood. Reinforced window reinforced with wire mesh. I pressed my ear against it. Silence. Then, a faint scratching sound. Scritch. Scritch. My hand tightened on the pry bar. I tried the handle. Locked. Hello? FDNY. Anyone in there? The scratching stopped. Then a low, guttural moan answered from the other side. Not human. Not anymore. Damn it. Barricaded inside, or turned inside. Either way, no entry there. Medical supplies were likely inside. Cut off. Back towards the bunk room corridor. Doors stood ajar. Darkness yawned. The smell of decay grew stronger. I needed water. Weapons. Anything. The first bunk room was empty, beds stripped. The second wasn't. Two figures lay on cots, motionless, covered in sheets. But the smell. Sweet rot. Overpowering. I approached slowly, pry bar raised. One sheet stirred. A low growl rumbled. The sheet slid back, revealing a face bloated and gray, eyes milky white. It sat up, jaw unhinging with a wet pop. Another figure on the adjacent cot jerked upright, responding to the sound. Trapped in the doorway, no room to swing. They lurched off the cots, moving with surprising speed for the dead. The first one lunged, arms outstretched, teeth snapping. I jammed the pry bar forward like a spear. The chisel end punched into its sternum with a sickening crack. It staggered but didn't stop, impaled, still clawing towards me, black fluid bubbling from its mouth. The second one slammed into me from the side, knocking me against the doorframe. Agony exploded in my ribs. White light flashed behind my eyes. I dropped the pry bar. The thing's teeth scraped against my helmet strap. Rotten fingers clawed at my neck. I drove my elbow back hard, catching its jaw. Bone cracked. It reeled. The impaled one was still coming, the pry bar jutting grotesquely from its chest. I grabbed the only thing at hand, a metal fire extinguisher bracket ripped from the wall, swung it like a club. It connected with the impaled one's temple. It dropped, finally still. The second one recovered, lunging again. I met it with the bracket, a brutal downward swing crushing its collarbone. It stumbled. I kicked its shattered leg out from under it. It went down hard. I brought the heavy metal bracket down on its skull again and again until it stopped moving. Black gore splattered the walls, the bunks, me. I staggered to the bathroom across the hall, blessedly empty. I cranked the tap. A groan, a sputter, then a trickle of brownish water. I didn't care. I cupped it, drank greedily, the metallic tang barely registering. I splashed it on my face, the cold shock clearing some of the fog. Back in the corridor, I retrieved the pry bar from the dead thing's chest with a wet schluck. The tablet felt heavier than ever. Proof. Worth dying for? Maybe. But I needed to live long enough to use it. Martinez, I needed to get back to him. Maybe find a way to splint that leg, find a vehicle, get out of this death trap. I hurried back towards the apparatus bay, the metal bracket tucked awkwardly under my arm, the pry bar ready. The silence felt heavier now, watchful. I turned the corner into the bay. Martinez was gone. A dark smear led away from where he'd been propped against the ladder truck, vanishing into the deeper shadows near the rear of the bay. My heart slammed against my bruised ribs. "Martinez!" I called, voice tight. A low growl answered. From the darkness near the tool lockers, then another. Shapes detached themselves from the gloom. 3, 4. Shambling forms in torn turnouts. Firefighters, or what was left of them. They'd been waiting, drawn by the noise of my fight in the bunk room. Ambush. Despair threatened to swallow me. Alone, injured, surrounded by the ghosts of my brothers turned into monsters. The tablet pressed against me, a mocking weight. "No!" I breathed, then louder, the word tearing from my raw throat. "No!" Rage surged, hot and blinding, not just at the dead, at the bastards who did this, who set the fires, who murdered Cap, who executed firefighters in their own house, who turned Martinez. This firehouse wasn't a sanctuary, it was a tomb they'd prepared, and I was the last rat in the trap. They closed in, forming a ragged half-circle, cutting off my retreat back into the firehouse. Their groans echoed in the cavernous space. Martinez led the shambling charge, his ruined leg scraping the concrete. I didn't wait. I charged them. I screamed, a raw animal sound fueled by pain and volcanic fury. I swung the pry bar like a scythe, aiming low. It shattered the kneecap of the one with the half-melted face. It went down shrieking. I stomped hard on its neck. The metal bracket in my left hand was a clumsy club. I swung it wildly, catching another across the jaw. Bone splintered. It stumbled back. Martinez was almost on me, arms outstretched. I ducked his clumsy grab, spun, and drove the pry bar backwards like a spike. It punched through his turnout coat, deep into his lower back. He staggered, snarling, but didn't fall. He turned, impossibly fast for a man with a broken leg, and slammed into me. We crashed against the side of the ladder truck. My ribs exploded in agony. I saw stars. His rotten breath fogged my visor. His teeth snapped inches from my face. Another infected grabbed my shoulder from behind, teeth sinking into the thick padding near my neck. Kevlar held, but the pressure was immense. A third lurched towards my exposed side. Trapped, pinned, outnumbered. This was it. Queensboro Tower redux. Death in a firehouse tomb. Then, light. Blinding. White light speared through the high windows near the ceiling. Not sunlight. Artificial. Powerful. accompanied by the sudden, deafening whump-whump of helicopter blades churning the air directly overhead. The infected froze. Martinez's milky eyes flickered upwards towards the searing light. The one biting my shoulder slackened its grip, momentarily distracted. It was the only chance I'd get. I dropped the pry bar still embedded in Martinez's back. With both hands, I grabbed the metal bracket jammed in his mouth and shoved forward with every ounce of agonized strength I had left. Hard. The force, combined with his own forward lunge, drove him backwards. He stumbled over the fallen infected with the shattered knee. They went down in a tangle of limbs and snarls. I whirled, ripping free from the slackened bite. The infected behind me was still looking up, dazed by the light. I slammed the heavy metal bracket down onto its skull with a sickening crunch splat. It dropped. The third one lunged. I sidestepped, letting its momentum carry it past me into the side of the engine. It rebounded, dazed. I brought the bracket down on the back of its neck. Vertebrae snapped. It collapsed. Martinez was struggling to untangle himself from the other corpse, his milky eyes fixed on me again, filled with mindless hate. He snarled, dragging himself forward. I didn't hesitate. I raised the blood-slicked bracket. "I'm sorry, brother," I choked out, then brought it down. Crunch. Once. Twice. Until he stopped moving. Silence descended, broken only by my ragged sobs, the pounding of blood in my ears, and the relentless whump-whump of the helicopter hovering directly overhead, its spotlight pinning me in the center of the carnage like an actor on a stage. I looked up, squinting against the blinding beam. It wasn't a rescue bird. It was black, unmarked. Like the SUV. Like the soldiers. The spotlight held me, assessing, judging. Then a voice boomed from a loudspeaker, metallic, inhuman, echoing through the bay. "Survivor, you possess unauthorized property. Relinquish the device and you will be extracted." The tablet. They knew. They'd tracked it. Or tracked the dead driver's SUV. They wanted their evidence back. The spotlight felt like a target painted on my chest. Extraction or execution the moment I stepped outside. They'd killed Cap. They'd killed Rico. They'd murdered firefighters in this very house. They'd burned hundreds alive. Trust was suicide. The light was blinding, but beyond it, through the grimy windows, I saw movement on the roof across the street. Dark figures, silhouetted against the burning skyline. Setting up snipers. They weren't offering rescue. They were boxing me in, containing the problem, me, and the truth I carried. Rage, cold, and lethal replaced the despair. They thought I was cornered prey. They thought I'd break. They thought wrong. I bent down, ignoring the screaming protest from my ribs, and yanked the pry bar free from Martinez's back. I wiped the black gore on my coat. I hefted the bloody metal bracket in my other hand. I looked straight up into the blinding light, my face a mask of blood, soot, and fury. "Come and take it," I roared, the sound raw and primal, echoing off the firehouse walls, challenging the machine in the sky and the shadows on the rooftops. The spotlight didn't waver. The helicopter hovered. The silence stretched, thick with lethal intent. The snipers across the street were invisible now, swallowed by the glare. But I knew they were there. Sights trained, fingers on triggers. The standoff held for 3 heartbeats. Then, the metallic voice boomed again, devoid of emotion. "Protocol engaged. Purge the site." A canister smashed through one of the high bay windows, clattering onto the concrete floor near the engine. It hissed, spewing thick white smoke that smelled sharply of chemicals and almonds. Incendiary. They weren't waiting. They were burning Firehouse 42. With me inside, the purge had begun. The white smoke wasn't just blinding, it burned. Acrid, chemical-laced tendrils snaked through the bay, stinging my eyes even through the mask's compromised seal, clawing down my throat like shards of glass. That sickly sweet almond scent choked me. The same smell from the metal canister near our rig, the same smell clinging to the dead driver. Incendiary accelerant. And it was igniting. A lick of blue-tinged flame erupted from the canister near engine 42, greedily feeding on the chemical fog. It raced across the oil-stained concrete floor like liquid death, painting the massive truck's undercarriage in flickering light. Heat slammed into me, a physical blow. The dead firefighters near the lockers twitched as the flames kissed their boots, their decaying flesh beginning to sizzle. Purge confirmed. Terminate all biologicals. The metallic voice boomed from the sky, cold, final. They weren't just burning the evidence, they were burning me. Alive. Like Cap. Like the people in Queensboro Tower. Like Martinez. Survival wasn't hiding. It was attack. It was fire with fire. I lunged. Not for the exits they'd be covering, but deeper into the inferno, towards the ladder truck. Engine 42. My salvation was painted red. I scrambled up the rear step, the metal scorching hot even through my gloves. Spare keys. Often magnetic box under the dash. My hand slapped against cold metal. Yes. I ripped the box free, smashed it open. Keys jangled. I jammed the right one into the ignition. Turned. The massive diesel engine roared to life, a deep guttural bellow that momentarily drowned out the helicopter and the crackling flames. Hope, fierce and desperate, flared. The apparatus bay was filling fast. Flames danced around the truck's massive tires. Smoke reduced visibility to a few feet of swirling, burning gray. The snipers wouldn't see me, not clearly, but the helicopter. It was the eye in the sky, the conductor of this burning symphony. Engine 42 was a pumper truck. It carried thousands of gallons of fire-suppressant foam concentrate, and it had a roof-mounted deluge gun, a cannon designed to smother industrial fires. I slammed the pump into gear. The familiar whine built. Pressure gauges jumped, my eyes fixed on the control for the deluge gun. Remote operation. Yes. Outside, the helicopter banked slightly, its spotlight probing the thickening smoke near the main bay doors. Hunting. Waiting for me to break cover and run into their kill zone. I didn't run. I unleashed hell from inside hell. I yanked the deluge gun control. High above the cab, the massive nozzle whined as it swiveled upwards. Not towards the bay fire. Towards the black bird hovering just beyond the burning roof. I hit the foam discharge. A colossal, pressurized geyser of thick, white fire-suppressant foam erupted from the roof of Engine 42. It wasn't a stream, it was a tidal wave. It slammed upwards with incredible force, cutting through the chemical smoke like a white spear. It hit the helicopter's cockpit windshield and rotor housing dead on. The effect was instantaneous. The spotlight vanished, smothered in clinging viscous foam. The helicopter lurched violently. The rhythmic whump-whump stuttered, choked by foam clogging the air intakes and rotor mechanisms. A high-pitched metallic shriek tore from the engine as it faltered. The spotlight beam became a frantic, diffuse smear behind the white curtain clinging to it. Contaminant! The metallic voice cut off in a burst of static. Got you, you bastards! I didn't wait. I threw the massive ladder truck into reverse. The tires squealed, fighting for traction on the foam-slicked, burning concrete. We lurched backwards. I cranked the wheel hard, aiming the truck's rear towards the smaller personnel door I'd entered through, the one blocked only by the toppled cooler, not the massive, burning main doors. The truck's rear bumper slammed into the steel personnel door, buckling it outwards, tearing it partially off its hinges. Cooler, debris and burning fragments scattered. A gap opened. Not huge, but enough. The helicopter, blinded and choking, was losing altitude fast, wobbling dangerously over the street outside. Its distress was my opportunity. I slammed the truck into drive, aimed the battered nose towards the mangled opening. Flames licked at the cab windows. Smoke poured in through the vents. I stomped on the gas. The massive engine roared. We surged forward, plowing through the wreckage of the door, bursting out of the burning firehouse into the chaotic night. Chaos reigned. The blinded helicopter spun wildly, its tail rotor clipping the roof of a nearby building in a shower of sparks before it careened downwards. Crash! It hit the street 2 blocks away with a ground-shaking explosion that lit the block in a fresh fireball. Secondary explosions whumped as fuel ignited, but the ground threat was immediate. Dark figures, cleaners, were already reacting. 3 near the burning firehouse entrance spun, raising rifles. Muzzle flashes lit up the smoke. Bullets spanged off the truck's heavy grille and reinforced windshield. The glass starred, but held. Snipers. Across the street, on the roof, I saw the flash from a rooftop. Ping! A bullet ricocheted off the mirror beside my head. Snipers. Across the street, on the roof, I saw the flash from a rooftop. A bullet ricocheted off the mirror beside my head. I kept the gas pedal floored. The ladder truck was a battering ram. I swerved towards the cleaners near the entrance. They dove for cover. One wasn't fast enough. The truck didn't even shudder. I saw him in the rearview mirror, a broken doll spinning away into the flames engulfing the firehouse entrance. Another sniper shot. The windshield finally gave way, spider webbing completely, collapsing inwards in a shower of safety glass. Shards cut my cheek. Smoke and the stench of burning Queens flooded the cab. I needed off the street. I needed cover. I spotted an alley ahead on the right, between a collapsing pharmacy and a skeletal office building. Wide enough? Barely. I wrenched the wheel. The truck's rear end fishtailed, scraping brickwork in a shower of sparks. We plunged into the relative darkness of the alley. Gunfire chased us, chewing up the brickwork at the alley entrance. They couldn't follow the truck in here. Not easily. But they'd flank. Fast. I slammed the truck to a stop halfway down the alley, behind a mountain of overflowing dumpsters. Shelter, temporary. I killed the lights, the engine. Silence descended, broken only by the distant city's death rattle, the crackling fire from the destroyed firehouse, and my own harsh breathing. The tablet was still there, pressed against my ribs. My only weapon now was the truth, but it needed to be seen, to be heard. Now. Before they silenced me for good. My hand shook as I pulled the cracked tablet from inside my coat. The screen flickered weakly. Battery, 4%. No time. I fumbled, swiping through the locked interface. Emergency protocols. Every FDNY device had a city-wide emergency broadcast override for catastrophic events. A direct line to every surviving radio, every emergency frequency, bypassing all encryption. If the system still had power, if anyone was listening, my bloodied thumb found the override icon, a stylized red flame. I pressed it. The screen flashed. Emergency broadcast enabled. Record message. I held the tablet up, pointing its camera at my face, bloodied, soot-blackened, one eye swelling from flying glass but burning with fury. I hit record. "This is Firefighter Jake Martinez, Engine 7. My voice was a ragged rasp, but it cut through the silence of the cab. "If anyone can hear this, anyone still alive, listen. The fires, the outbreaks. It's not an accident. It's deliberate. They're burning the city to cover it up. Cleaners in black uniforms, unmarked vehicles, helicopters. They're executing survivors. They murdered my crew. They murdered firefighters in their own houses. Engine 42. Queensboro Tower, all set by them. Ignition points, timestamps. Proof is on this device. They call it Protocol Blackout. Purge the sites. They're killing us. Don't trust the black uniforms. Don't trust the cover story. Fight back. Save who you can. Tell every... Damn it! They'd found me, again. A sniper round punched through the passenger side window, shattered the tablet's screen, and tore into the dashboard inches from my hand. Sparks flew. The tablet died instantly, a spiderweb of cracks over my frozen image on its blackened screen. A black SUV slammed to a halt, blocking the alley entrance behind me. Doors flew open. Cleaners spilled out, rifles raised, moving with lethal precision. Another SUV blocked the far end. Trapped. Again. No truck to save me this time. No foam cannon. Just me. Bleeding. Broken. Weaponless except for the dead tablet. The lead cleaner approached my door. His rifle trained steadily on my head through the shattered windshield. His face was obscured by a tactical mask, but his eyes were cold, empty pits. He gestured with the barrel. Get out. Rage wasn't enough, grief wasn't enough, but defiance, that was all I had left. I looked down at the dead tablet. Maybe the broadcast went out. Maybe it didn't. But I'd screamed the truth into the void. That had to count for something. I slowly opened the cab door. The smell of smoke, blood, and cordite filled my nostrils. I stood on shaky legs, facing the masked cleaner, my hands empty at my sides. The other cleaners closed in, forming a tight circle, rifles unwavering. The alley felt like an execution chamber. I slowly opened the cab door. The smell of smoke, blood, and cordite filled my nostrils. I stood on shaky legs, facing the masked cleaner, my hands empty at my sides. The other cleaners closed in, forming a tight circle, rifles unwavering. The alley felt like an execution chamber. The lead cleaner's finger tightened on the trigger. "Device!" he commanded, his voice muffled by the mask. I met his cold eyes. A flicker of Cap's face. Rico's laugh. Patel's determined frown. The people we couldn't save. The city burning around us. The truth, even if only whispered into the storm. I smiled. A grim, bloody slash across my face. "Go to hell," I rasped. His finger started its final squeeze. Suddenly, from the rooftops above, a new sound erupted. Not gunfire, a war cry, raw, human, furious. For Queensboro, a Molotov cocktail arced down from the dark rooftop, shattering on the hood of the SUV, blocking the far end of the alley. Flames erupted. Cleaners near it shouted, scrambling back from the sudden heat. For the firehouses! Another bottle. This one hit the dumpster pile near the cleaners surrounding me. Burning fuel splashed. 2 cleaners screamed, engulfed in sudden fire, staggering wildly, becoming human torches that crashed into their comrades. Panic erupted in the tight formation. Gunfire erupted downwards from the rooftops, not the precise cracks of sniper rifles, but the frantic rattle of semi-automatics and the boom of a shotgun. Cleaners dove for cover behind the truck, behind dumpsters. Return fire snapped upwards, chewing brickwork. I didn't hesitate. The circle was broken. Chaos was my ally. I moved, not away, towards the lead cleaner. He was momentarily distracted, tracking the new threat above. I lunged, ignoring the agony in my side, fueled by pure survival instinct. My hand shot out, not for his gun, but for the combat knife sheathed on his vest. I yanked it free. He reacted fast, swinging his rifle butt towards my head. I ducked under it, the wind of its passage ruffling my hair. I drove the knife upwards with every ounce of strength I had left. It punched through the soft tissue under his jaw, angled up into his skull. His eyes, visible above the mask, widened in shock, then glazed over. He collapsed, taking the knife with him. No weapon, again. I grabbed his fallen rifle, heavy, unfamiliar, but it had bullets. The alley was a kill box. Cleaners fired up at the rooftops. Figures moved up there, silhouettes against the burning skyline. Civilians? Militia? Survivors who'd heard my broadcast? Seen the firehouse burn? Heard my scream into the dark? It didn't matter. This way! A voice bellowed from a fire escape halfway down the alley. A man waved frantically, gesturing towards an open doorway below him. Move, fireman! I didn't need telling twice. I ran, crouching low, the stolen rifle heavy in my hands. Bullets snapped past me, kicking up sparks from the asphalt. I reached the doorway, the back entrance of the skeletal office building. Hands grabbed me, hauled me inside. The door slammed shut behind me. Heavy locks thudded into place. I collapsed against the wall, gasping, the rifle clattering to the floor. I was in a dark, dusty basement corridor. Faces peered at me from the gloom. Maybe a dozen people. Men. Women. A child clinging to her mother's leg, all armed with makeshift weapons. Pipes, knives, a shotgun, a few hunting rifles. Their eyes were wide with fear, but also a fierce, burning determination. The man who pulled me in, grizzled, maybe 50s, wearing a stained FDNY cap that wasn't his, clapped a hand on my shoulder. Heard your broadcast, brother, he growled, his voice rough. Heard you loud and clear. Name's Hank. We got your back. He glanced towards the locked door where the furious firefight still raged outside. Seems you pissed off the right people. I looked at them. At Hank. At the stolen rifle on the floor. At the dead tablet in my pocket. The truth felt heavier than ever, but it wasn't just mine anymore. It was a spark. The first 24 hours were over. The world was ash and blood and teeth. But the fight had just begun.